Brother Kadash, I want to start off by giving our praises to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahushai Bahashem Kadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders. Peace, blessings, and honors to all the brothers in this truth. Speaking on the elders, there was a certain elder from the Chicago camp of the GMS, which inspired me to do this lesson. He pretty much broke it down, and I thought maybe I'll share it too. So this is who are the Edomites, or maybe I'll name it Alexander the Great, a Edomite, or who are the Edomites today. And as you see on your page, on your screen, it has a depiction of Alexander the Great, which we know who looks like that today, who has that type of hair, who has that type of skin color, who has those type of features today. And if you didn't, then there's another picture underneath, which is Donald Trump, and then there's an ancient depiction of an Edomite, so it's showing you, and even with the Edomite coins, it's showing you how the Edomites look, so we know who they are today. Many brothers in this truth know this. The people that are blind to this is either because the Lord didn't wake them up, or they're just deceiving themselves because they don't want to admit that the Edomites are the so-called Caucasian or white man today. So we're gonna go through the Bible and break it down and break down the lineage. This picture I found online, somebody had a page online where they were breaking down all this too, and it was very edifying for me. So I thought that maybe I'll share it too. So somebody come and ask you the question, who are the Edomites, and can you prove it? Trace the lineage back to show who the Edomites are, or to even show that Alexander the Great, the Greek, was an Edomite, right? This is how you break it down. So we're gonna start in Genesis chapter 36 and try to break down and go through that lineage straight to the point, right? Because sometimes I'll find videos and there'll be a lot of talking, and you kind of want to skip through it because you want to get the answers, right? So you kind of want to skip through it and get the answers. You want them to get straight to the point. This is Genesis chapter 36 in the beginning, verse 1. So you could write this down, and then you will know how to break down who the Edomites are today. This is Genesis chapter 36, verse 1, if I could get to it. It says, now these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. So just that verse 1, we're trying to break down the generations of Esau and how the Edomites relate to the people of today, or at least goes back to Alexander the Greek, which we know from the Greeks came the Romans, and then we know from there, which we're going to break that down, so I don't want to jump the gun. From there, America is Rome all over again. The people that is ruling America are the same people that was in rulership in ancient Rome and ancient Greek too. That's why they're making you worship the ancient Roman Empire, because America is Rome all over again today. It's the modern Rome, But if you go to Genesis chapter 36, verse 1, now these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. So we got to go through his generations. You could read this whole chapter, and it continues breaking down his generations and generations. I'm going to jump to verse 10 to get straight to the point. It says, these are the names of Esau's sons. Eliphaz, the son of Adah, the wife of Esau. Reuel, the son of Beshemeth, the wife of Esau. But we're going to focus in on Eliphaz, the first son, the son of Adah, the wife of Esau. So Eliphaz, verse 11, and the sons of Eliphaz were Timon. So we tracing it from Esau to Eliphaz. Now we got war Timon. So when you see in the Bible where it says O Timon, if you go to Obadiah chapter 1, it says O Timon, then now you have an understanding and know that that's talking about the Edomites, right? It's just referring to the Edomites. Oman, Zephion, and Gatam, and Kanas. It says in Timnah was concubine of Esau's son, and she bare Esau's Amalek. So you will hear us talk about Amalek a lot of times when we're referring to the so-called Jewish people over there in the land. They come from Amalek. They Amalekites, right? So now we breaking it down from Esau, Eliphaz, down to Amalek. It says these were the sons of Adah's wife, Esau's wife. So now we're down to Amalek, right? So now we're going to jump to a little history, which is we're going to jump to 1 Samuel. From there, we're going to jump to 1 Samuel chapter 15. I'll repeat it again because I know, like, when I'm trying to study something and I'm watching the videos, I'm trying to write it down, I'm trying to get the breakdown. They say it, but then I gotta rewind it because I ain't even got to that point yet, but the video's still going. So I gotta rewind it to get the precept again and over again. So it's 1 Samuel chapter 15 verses 7 through 8. So 1 Samuel chapter 15 verse 7 through 8, and I'll be like, if they say the precept again, then it'll help me out while I'm trying to keep along, because sometimes the video is moving too fast for you to keep along. Then you be wishing that they say the precept again so you ain't got to rewind. So 1 Samuel chapter 15 verse 7 through 8, it says, and King Saul was told to go kill all the Amalekites. That's how he sinned against the Lord, because he didn't listen, because of this right here. And Saul smote the Amalekites from Havana into the Cummins to Shahar, that is over against Egypt. And he took Agag. So this is very important. Agag the king. So this was King Agag of the Amalekites alive. So King Agag was an Amalekite. He was the king of the Amalekites. He was an Amalekite, which means what? He was a Edomite. He came from Esau, the lineage. So we tracing it from Esau to damn, let me jump back, because I'll be getting the names wrong, so I want to get everything exact right. Eliphaz, right? So Esau to Eliphaz to Amalekite. Now we're down to King Agag, which is an Amalekite, right? So it says, and he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and that's how he sinned against the Lord. He didn't listen to what the Lord told him to do. They could have been wiped out. The king Saul didn't do it. It says, and utterly destroy all the people with the edge of the sword. But he took the king, though, because they wanted to, and it tells you why. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep and the oxen. He's supposed to kill all the animals too, and of the fatlings, and of the lambs, and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them, but everything that was vile and refused, that they destroy utterly. So they went in there and did their own thing instead of what the Lord told them to do. It says, then came the word of the Lord to Samuel, saying, it repenteth me that I have set up Saul to be the king, for he is turned back from following me, and has not performed my commandments. And it grieved Samuel, and he cried unto the Lord all night, because King Saul did follow exactly to the T what the Lord told him to do, so that was his downfall. That was the beginning of King Saul's downfall. But like I said, we're from Esau to Eliphaz to Amalekite down to King Agag, and we then use Genesis 36, 1 through 12, 1 Samuel 15, 7 through 8. Now if you jump to the book of Esther chapter 3, so we're down to King Agag, right? Now jump back to the book of jump up to the book of Esther chapter 3 verse 10, straight to the point. Esther chapter 3 verse 10, straight to the point. It says, and the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agite. So if his father Hammedatha was a Agite, meaning he comes from the lineage of King Agag, right? That means that also Haman will be a Agite, right? It says the Jews' enemy. So it was known that these were the Jews' enemy, because Amalekite was always the Jews' enemy. That's why King Saul was supposed to go take them all out, right? So now from the book of Esther 3 and 10, we're going to jump to Esther 16 and 10. So we know that Haman is a Agite, which means that he comes from King Agag, which means King Agag was an Amalekite, which means that Haman will be an Amalekite, which the Amalekites are Edomites. So we know Haman and King Agag will all be Edomites. They would be considered Edomites. That's where their lineage go back to, Edomites, right? So now if you jump to Esther, oh no, I'm tripping. It's not even Esther 16. Let me hold that real fast and let me get the actual precept that I'm looking for. And look at that, see? So that got me, because there is a Esther chapter 16, but it's an apocrypha. And see, this even proves more that the apocrypha is biblical, because really to understand this and trace this, you got to get into the apocrypha to be able to do it. you know, because it got the rest of the book of Esther in it. Look at that. I mean, that's the spirit. So now if you go to the Apocrypha, right, and you go to Esther chapter 16, verse 10, it says for Ammon, but it's talking about Haman, right? Same thing in Esther chapter 3 that we just read, verse 10. Now Haman, that we know he was a Agite, Agagite, right? Which are Edomites, which are Amalekites, which are Edomites, right? But so now it says for Haman, a Macedonian, right? So who else is a Macedonian? Well, we know that Alexander the Greek, his father, is Philip II of Macedonian, which means he's a Macedonian, which means Alexander the Greek is a Macedonian. But we're going to keep breaking it down. For Haman, a Macedonian, so he's a Macedonian, but he also is an Agite, which are Amalekites, which are Edomites, if you have ears to hear. It says the son of Amadatha, which is, we just read him in Esther 3 verse 10, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood and far distance from our goodness, and is a stranger received of us. So now it's saying, look, Haman is a Macedonian. So this is the connection between the Macedonians and the Agites, right? The Agadites, right? Which connects back to Amalekite, which reflects back to Eliphaz, which goes back to Esau, which makes them all Edomites. Now, if you jump from there, breaking it down from there, and you go, because you still got to stay in the Apocrypha, you know, and you go to First Maccabees, all the way at the end of the Apocrypha, First Maccabees chapter 1, you could break this down as, let me get there. First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 1. And it happened after Alexander, right, the son of Philip, listen up, the Macedonian. So what did the son of, what does the Philip II have in common with Haman? They're both of Macedonian, right? The Greeks, Macedonians, who came out of the land of Chitin, had smitten Darius, king of Persia and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece. Right. Because you had the Israelites, you know, went through the Babylonian captivity. Then from there, the Persian Medes came in power, right? And then that's when, you know, you had Ezra, Nehemiah, all going back to build the temple again, right? Now, from the Persian and Medes, you got the Greeks. So that's why it's still going into Alexander. It's breaking it down to Philip II all the way to Alexander the Greek, or you could call him a Great, but you know he was a Greek because they came in power after. And then after the Greeks, we know that the Romans came in power. You know, you can read about that in the book of First Maccabees and Second Maccabees, right? But the point is, Philip the Macedonian, he had that in common with Haman, because Haman was a Macedonian too, but okay, Salaki, you want to see where I left off at? So I want to go through it because I'm trying to break. I know some people might watch this video and be like, he breaking this down slowly, because I'm trying to actually teach it. So I want people to be able to write it down so they could go back and study and actually learn it. So we went from Esau to Eliphaz to Amalekites, which gets you down to King Agag, which makes all these names that we just named, they're all Edomites because they go back to Esau. King Agag gets you down to Haman, which Haman was a Agite, but he was a Macedonian, which is the connection to Philip II, which is also a Macedonian that we just got done reading in the first book of Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 1, right? So from there, which also tells you that his son was Alexander the Greek, or Great, which would make him a Macedonian too, which that all leads back up to that lineage. If you follow that lineage, the connections that we made, it all gets you back to Esau, which means that Alexander the Great would be a Edomite today. You know, well, and during his time, he would have been considered an Edomite, which we have a statue of him showing you what the Edomites would have looked like. which is exactly what's on your screen right now. Now, we understand that from the Edomites, you got the Romans, right? But we understand that they went out of power. You know, these same people are Edomites. They went out of power because the Roman Empire was taken down by really the Israelites, the Judites, you know, the Jews. And they came up in their stead and became, you know, the different leaders or whatever they was calling them. It's slipping the top of my head, the Caesars or whatever. But then from that, we know they went down for 1,000 years because the Lord bounded them for 1,000 years. You could read that, jumping all the way to the back of the book, Revelations chapter 20, verse 1. It says, I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold of the dragon, that old serpent. Because really, if you go back even farther, right, it says, which is the devil, the ones that's deceiving the whole world, right? That's what devil, the word devil means. And Satan and bound him 1,000 years, which we know is considered the dark ages. It was dark for them for 1,000 years. That's why they call it the dark ages when you learn about it in history class throughout school. But really, if you go even farther back, then you know Esau, that all goes back, that same spirit. Now you got to be spiritual to understand this part. Esau, that same spirit was in Cain. Go on Google and look up the similarities between Cain and Esau. You know, so that same spirit, that mark that was on Cain, Esau was reborn, reincarnated with that same mark. That's why it says Esau came out red all over like a hairy garment, just like the middle picture. They called Trump yellow, but really they pale or red. They blood shows through their skin, right? So now, if you spiritual, you can understand that Esau, that same spirit was in Cain. And then if you go back even farther, that same spirit was in the serpent, in that old serpent that was in the garden, that same exact spirit. You see what I'm saying? So now you have to be spiritual to see that part. So really, we connecting the old serpent of the garden all the way down to Alexander the Greek. If you spiritual and you have ears to hear, which you know, the Greeks, the people in power, the Greeks, the so-called white people in power, they put up their statues all over the place, and they false gods and idols, Zeus and all that, Poseidon and all that, which all look just like them, which are the Edomites, right? It goes to the Roman Empire, which is they did all the same stuff, which are Edomites, which when you come to today, they have a false god that they put up called Jesus Christ, which is the same image of them that looks just like the same image of the Romans that you find on the statues, which looks just like the same image of the Greeks that you find on the statues. Jesus Christ looks just like all them. Why? Because it's the same as that people. It's the Edomites, and they put up their god, and they make their god look just like them. And then they cause the world to worship their God. That's why it calls them the devil, deceiver. They deceived the world and told you, look, this is how the Lord, Yahweh Shai in the Bible, this is his name, Jesus Christ, and this is how he looks like one of us. That was deception. That's why it's calling them the devil, right? Now, if you jump back there, and you know, this is very important too. The book of Revelations is not in order. You can't go from chapter to chapter and like it's going to go in order. That's not how the book of Revelations is. It jumps around. Now, from prophecy, from different points of time of prophecy. Now, if you jump back to Revelations chapter 17, I want to make sure I get this in order, right? And you go to verse 5, it says, upon her forehead, the name was written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, the abominations of the earth, right? Which gets you to 666 in the Hebrew numeric value for Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, and the abomination of earth, which is talking about America, right? Because this is Rome all over again. It says, and I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Yahweh Shai. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. It says, and the angel said unto me, where didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carried the woman, right? It says, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. So we know the 7 heads is going back to who? It's showing you the Edomites' power structure, their kingdoms. The Edomite, or you could say the so-called white man's kingdoms on earth, which were the Greeks that we're talking about. From the Greeks, you get the Romans, right? You get the, I believe, if I'm saying this in order, hopefully, it says the French, right? You got the French, because they were bound for 1,000 years, right? The Roman Empire went down and everything. They came back with the French, the Spaniards, which came over here and conquered the Israelites, the Issacharites. They conquered the Aztecs, which are Israelites. which are the so-called Mexican people today, right? So you had the French, you had the Spaniard, you had Germaner Major, Germaner Minor, and then you had Great Britain. And we all know that America comes from the, I believe it was the 12 colonies of Britain, or maybe 16, but I believe it's the 12 British colonies. And that's where America came from, and then they fought for their independence on the 4th of July that they celebrate every year. And then they got their independence and now they're America. But really, it's Mystery Babylon the Great. But really, it traces back to all these, because all these people that's running America all have something in common. They all trace back to Germaner Major, Germaner Minor, the French, the Spanish, the British, which goes back to the Romans, which goes back to the Greeks, which we already showed that the Greeks go back to the Agites, which goes back to Amalekolite, which goes back to Ephas, which all goes back to Esau, and they all have something in common. The Spaniards that took down the Aztecs, and the British and the French, and that took down the so-called Negroes during the transatlantic slave trade and bring them over here in slavery, all have something in common. They're all Edomites. They're all the same people. That's why they was on the same accord and doing the same thing to the Israelites, which is what the so-called Native Americans and the so-called Mexicans and the so-called Negroes all have in common, is they were took down by the same people and they went through the same thing, which is slavery and genocide, because the Native Americans, the Mexicans, and the Negroes all have something in common too. They're all Israelites. And see, this is the great mystery, and it's broken down plain upon the tables now. So you can get it. So a young man like me could get it, and I can help spread the truth from the elders, from the apostles, which get it from the Lord. And then we could just break it down and spread the truth. Matthew 24. Then this gospel should be preached throughout the whole world. Then the end should come. So you got to do your part, right? So now breaking that down, like we just break it down. You got Greeks, Romans, French, Spanish, Germaner Major, Germaner Minor, and British. And the Brit, in Great Britain, which is the beast, right? It says, which has 7 heads. Then the 10 horns gets into the EU nations and stuff like that, which is going to shoot fire on this whore. That's going to play a part in turning against this whore, Habakkuk chapter 2, and destroying America, which is that great whore that's sitting on top of it. But the 7 heads is power structure, is kingdoms that build up to the point that we're at right now. And that great whore that's sitting on top of it, which is America, is only making you worship these ancient empires, these ancient kingdoms that they had, which is making you worship the Roman Empire, because this is Rome all over again. Now, when you finally get to Second Esdras, jumping back to Second Esdras, chapter 6, right? Famous precept. Second Esdras chapter 6, verse 9. You can understand it now, which says, for Esau is the end of the world. Now you could understand it. Now you could connect it. Now you could see how Esau, what does it mean that Esau is the end of the world? It means Esau will be in rulership at the end of the world before the Lord comes back. It says, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. So we know when it says Jacob is the beginning of the follow, going to Revelation 21, we know this is talking about the kingdom of heaven on earth. We know that the kingdom of heaven has not been on earth, and it's not on earth yet. So this prophecy hasn't been fulfilled. So what does that mean? That means that Esau will still be in rulership all the way until the Lord returns, and we know the Lord hasn't returned. So who are the Edomites that will be in rulership today? Who are the Edomites? Well, we just broke it down. Now you can understand how the Edomites are still around today and are in power. You understand that Alexander the Greek, if you trace the lineage back through what we just did, Esau to Eliphaz, all the way to Amalekolite, all the way to King Agag, all the way to Haman the Agite, which was a Macedonian, all the way down to Philip II, which is Macedonian, which had his son Alexander the Greek, which from the Greeks the Romans came, and all the way down to the seven heads, the Romans, the French, Spaniards, Germaner Major, Germaner Minor, and Great Britain, and then from Great Britain, America, which are led and run by the Edomites, because this is their kingdom, meaning they will be in powership at the end of the world. Now you get it. Now you simply get it. The Edomite, that's how the Edomites are still around. That's the lineage. That's the line. That's the connections to show you that the Edomites are still around today and power. And the Edomites are going to be the one that's going to fight against the Lord. That's where you get Revelations 12 from. That's where you get 2nd Esdras chapter 13. That's where you get Revelations 19 from. Those are going to be the ones that's going to fight against the Lord. And then when you get to Revelations 21, then that's when John is breaking it down and says, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth. Why? Because going back to 2nd Esdras 6 and 9, Esau is the end of the world, meaning that earth, that heaven, that world, that kingdom, that rulership, that Esau is the end of the world, that's over with. And then he's seen a new rulership on earth. That's why he said, I saw a new heaven and a new earth, which is what? And you go back to 2nd Esdras 6 and 9, it says, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followed. That's the one that he's seen. It says, for the first heaven and the first earth, when Esau was in rulership, it's passed away, and there was no more sea. And it says, I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, not new people, not any nation on the earth could be saved. No, he said New Jerusalem, which is going back to the Israelites, right? But it's new meaning renewed. Those same Israelites were saved, and then we got changed. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, we got changed. We got those new spiritual bodies. We were made clean. We were elected, Revelations chapter 7. So he saw New Jerusalem, we renewed, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And then we inherit the kingdom forever. And that hasn't happened yet, but that's coming very soon. That's why these breakdowns are going out. So hopefully that has been edifying. With that, I'm going to say salvation to the elect. Shalom.